Rochester Northern supports upstate New York construction with over 400 employees, 250 trucks, 9 ready-mix plants, 4 blacktop plants, and 40 aggregate mines. But their most important number is your bottom line. Contact them today to see why Rochester Northern has been the choice for contractors and project managers across upstate New York since 1929.
All right, everybody, welcome into Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. Paul Russo here with you, Kyle Evans as well. It's been a minute, but we're back out of the 4th of July holiday. A lot to get to. The All-Star break right in front of us. Got a lot to touch on, Kyle. Good to see you. It's been a little bit, but it's good to hear that you're tossing the pelota around a little bit and keeping that arm fresh just in case anybody comes calling.
Yeah, it's definitely been a fun summer so far. Been doing a lot of different things. Obviously, the Yankees have been disappointing, but kind of looking forward to the All-Star break as well. I kind of need some time off from this team. This team is it's tough to watch every day, and that's what I do every day, no matter what.
Yeah, I go back to the All-Star break, and I always quote one of my favorite Simpsons quotes. Would you rather know the cold, dark, ugly truth, or would you rather see me hit some dingers? And We'll touch probably more on that so next week, I'd say, when it's a lighter episode and we can kind of get to some different stuff. But before we get any further, I think obviously Rochester Northern, as you saw at the jump of the podcast here, and Cicino's Pizzeria and Restaurant. You can visit them at their original Waterloo location or all-new renovated location in Geneva. Dine-in, takeout, delivery, catering, and banquets. You can order online at Cicinos.com. Live, laugh, and eat well. It's the Italian way. And Finger Lakes Partners. Get the insurance you need from the people you know at Finger Lakes Partners Insurance, the Finger Lakes Insurance Agency for your home, auto, or business. Get a no-obligation quote today at fingerlakesinsurance.com. So, Kyle, luckily for us, we've both been around baseball all our lives, and it's kind of been a case of the ups and downs of baseball here recently for these New York teams. And while maybe neither team has fully gone the roller coaster, they've kind of flip-flopped in a way a little bit here. And that's kind of, I think, the main stuff we'll get to today. Begin with the Yankees here after what was a historic start to the season, have been on quite the slide as of late, to probably put it mildly. I would say 11 and 19 in their last 30, 6 and 14 in the last 20, and 3 of 7 in the last 10. Not great numbers, obviously, especially if you go a little bit deeper than that. Even it gets a little bit worse. I want to start here a little bit with this team, because I was talking about it. I mentioned off there, me and Nick were talking about it yesterday on the podcast before we got interrupted by the weather situations occurring all around us here in the Finger Lakes. And a lot of the issues, at least to me in my mind, with the Yankees go back to, I think, concerns I had in the preseason within spring training and stuff like that. A lot of, I'd say it's more so on the pitching issues, but the fact that they didn't really, I guess, have a game plan for, say, like DJ LeMahieu, for example, coming back and just call it bluntly, not really doing anything, for example, right? Stuff kind of like that. This is an offense and maybe team in general right now that's kind of flatlined. It's a hard gauge to read. They now find themselves 2 games back of Baltimore in the division. They're still 4.5 up in the wild card. So it's like, okay, you kind of get to next week with the All-Star break. You catch your breath a little bit. But I don't want to go full panic button just yet, but there are a lot of concerns for this team as we find ourselves at the halfway point of the season.
Yeah, they started 50 and 22. I think it's safe to admit the pitching was probably overachieving. The rotation ERA was, we talked about it, what was it, a month ago, was the best in the league at one point. The bullpen was one of the best in the league, despite having guys in there that, aren't notable names. So basically what has happened here is the pitching has just completely fallen off. And they're not even just, being average. They're being, really bad. Only the Rockies have a worse ERA in the last 26 games.
They are currently getting shelled already in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and 26 games is a long sample size.
Yeah.
That's why I don't even like calling this a slump.
Mhm.
This is concerning. This is going on 3-4 weeks now.
Yeah.
I mean, good teams usually maybe lose 3 at most, and then they bounce back and win a few again.
Mhm.
This team, I mean, they have 7 wins in their last 24 games. How is it even possible? Even the A's, the White Sox, the Rockies, they all have more wins.
Mhm.
The Yankees are doing stuff that is hard to even believe considering what they still have on the roster despite the injuries. And yes, the pitching, I think I'd blame the pitching more during the stretch,
Mhm.
but even the offensive numbers, I went through every hitter today,
Yeah.
and it's just, it's not good. And then when Aaron Judge is finally coming back down to earth a little bit,
Mhm.
they're in serious trouble. And Juan Soto really isn't hitting either. He's just getting on base,
Yeah.
walking a lot, but nobody behind him's hitting him in. It's like really bad right now.
Yeah, and I have to give kudos to Nick Felice on this yesterday because he was the one who brought it up to me when you think about it. And we'll get more maybe into this, obviously, when we kind of get to our updates on these injuries. Even though he might not have been really lighting the world on fire this year, what a difference having Giancarlo kind of behind Soto and Judge makes a difference, right? Not a knock on Verdugo or some of these other guys who have kind of found themselves kind of in this 4 spot, but certainly a little bit different when the guy that can go out of the park consistently makes an impact of where you can kind of pitch and work a batter,
Yeah, and I know Anthony Rizzo was struggling. He started to find it a little bit before he got injured, but even his presence too in the lineup, he can work a good at bat. He can get on base. I mean, both of those hitters are honestly missed. I know everyone's getting carried away with Ben Rice, which I know we're probably going to get into that more, but it's such a small sample size. But yeah, just up and down the lineup. I mean, you can point fingers at every single guy. I mean, I don't really want to point fingers at Judge, and I guess Soto, because Soto's still getting on base, but his average in the last 30 games is 230.
Yeah.
Soto.
Yeah, it's down. Oh, yeah.
So I mean, he isn't hitting the ball, and if Judge and Soto aren't going, the team doesn't go. Even last year, it was the Judge show.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah, it's tough because those two were kind of the guys kind of, frankly, carrying the lineup even up until a couple weeks ago, right? And then you mentioned you kind of get back down to earth a little bit and stuff like that. And it's just tough, you can't rely squarely on 1 or 2 guys. It needs to be kind of everybody here. And you mentioned if there is a little bit, albeit like you mentioned, right, it's a small sample size. If there is a sliver of glass half full kind of here with the Yankees, it does involve Ben Rice here a little bit. I know numerically speaking, it hasn't been probably what maybe fans are hoping for, but for a guy who is kind of, frankly, rocketed up the pipeline here, all things considered, a guy who, for those who, if you don't know at this point, right, goes to Dartmouth in college, more or less didn't play organized, I'll call it that, for a year and a half because of COVID, because of the way the rules were with the Ivy League and stuff like that. And now finds himself being pretty much what the Yankees have to have him be an everyday first baseman at this moment. He's done pretty all right for himself, to kind of put it a little bit mildly. It's a really interesting story. He's a guy who very clearly enjoys being where he is right now, and I think that's a very big part in this because we've seen some of these guys come up and struggle. I mean, Greg Bird's, I think, especially if you look specifically at first base, right? It's hard for guys, I think, our age, right, Kyle, to not think of Greg Bird. Like, think about the run that he had initially when he came up and just burned out too quick, or, he got hurt. The light became a little bit too bright for him in New York, and he fizzled out pretty quick. So it's one of those, I think, a little bit of breath of fresh air, kind of seeing Ben Rice kind of enjoy the moment and what he's in right now. And I think that might be helping him a little bit because you look around, right? And I know I mentioned LeMahieu, a guy that we haven't talked about at all yet. In addition to this is J.D. Davis, who's come on board. And I don't know if high hopes is the right term, right? But I think the Yankees were hoping to have another veteran bat come in and kind of be good. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe his batting average with the Yankees is .077. So it hasn't been great. And so for this young kid to kind of be the third or fourth best hitter here recently. It's like I said, I know it's a half glass full mentality, but for his sake and his perspective, I don't think you could have asked for a better kind of opening few weeks here for Ben Rice.
Yeah, it's been a nice few weeks for him. But honestly, I know you can't do this, but I'm just saying, take away that Red Sox 3-homer game.
Yeah,
He's only hitting 230
very
since
true.
he came up.
Yeah.
So as much as he helped him win that last game, or not the last game, but that's 2 games ago, they're just up in the lineup. They're not going to get enough to string together wins. I mean, they haven't won back-to-back games since mid-June.
Yeah.
I mean, tonight, yeah, they're going for their second straight win. Do I have confidence with Nestor on the mound, who has a 5.38 ERA on the road this year, to win them back-to-back games? No, I don't. I mean, this team, they just have a lot of problems, and the trade deadline's 19 days away, and I legit think Cashman has a lot of work to do. I think there's so many areas that they need to improve, or else they're going nowhere.
Yeah, I think we're going to focus more on the trade stuff next week because with the All-Star break. It is interesting. I think you want to look from that macro perspective, too, that there really hasn't been a ton of moves yet. I mean, I think the main one has been the Rays trading Savali to Milwaukee, and that's pretty much been kind of it, unless I'm really missing one that I just am losing track on the brain in season here. But we'll go more on that here next week. Let's begin here with some updates, some roster stuff. Left-hander Tim Maiza signed to a minor league deal with the Yankees, had been with the Blue Jays. Really had a fantastic year run, really could go a little bit deeper than that with Toronto. This year, quite the opposite. They DFA him about a week and a half ago. Yankees take a flyer on him here. I don't want to pound the left-hand arm thing here again. We did that with Tim Hill. We've done that a couple different times with a couple different guys, Kyle. I think, again, this more comes to my mind with one, depth, obviously, again, but two, we've kind of now have this MO with the Yankees of, okay, we've seen what this guy can do. Can our pitching coach staff make him back to what he was before? It's kind of what it feels like to me here with this Maiza signing.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. They always think that Matt Blake's going to work with them and fix things, but like you mentioned, there are a lot of left-handers. Jason Shreve came in 2.5 weeks ago.
Right, yeah.
Victor Gonzalez signed back with the Yankees on a minor league, or no. He cleared waivers and went to AAA. So he's in AAA, so there's a third lefty. I mean, what are they going to just keep bringing in lefties? I mean, Tim Hill, I know he's on the big league roster now, but there's a fourth. I mean, what are they doing here? Yeah. And I think they can't just go and pick up these people that get DFA'd. They have to make legit bullpen moves at the deadline.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see how things shake out with that too. Like I mentioned, I don't know if I want to do too much trade stuff this week, given next week, but like you're gonna have a lot more people, I think, being kind of de facto buyers at this deadline right now, just because of the way both leagues are kind of shaking out a little bit. I could be wrong, but when Pittsburgh is out here sniffing around on players, when we're used to them the past couple of years going back to being sellers, what does that tell you? So, either way. Mentioned Stanton a little bit here. Let's go back to him. Maybe activated shortly after the All-Star break, dealing with that same hamstring issue that it's funny reading the write-up on the Yankees on the website. Same one as last year, but it's the same one that he's dealt with for the past, 6, 7, 8 years now. So, either way, he could be activated here shortly after the All-Star break next week. That includes a potential without a rehab assignment. Last year, the Yankees only gave him one game of rehab in the minors before he was called up. Would be huge to get him back in my mind. I mentioned it a little bit already. You're kind of, I think, in that same boat at this point, Kyle, that, after these few weeks, obviously dealing with this hamstring issue, it'd be a big bet to get back into that lineup.
Yeah, I'm down for anything at this point. I guess, though, you have to note, though, that every time Stanton comes off the aisle, he starts slow. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really know how long it's going to take before he gets going anyways.
Yeah, one of those things where, I don't know. I just feel like the presence of that bat, though, can at least shake a little up, but who knows. Jason Dominguez started limited baseball activities at the complex in Tampa. Not anything super crazy by my understanding, but there was genuine concern that he might have missed the rest of the season at one time. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case anymore. However, still looking at probably mid-August as being a very generous timeline for him to get back. And even then, wouldn't be surprised it would just remain the same thing as it was, when he came back initially this year, where it's, okay, rehab to get him to AAA, and you're going to stay in AAA. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case with him.
Yeah, it's so frustrating that he got hurt because he'd be up right now. Who knows what he would be doing? He's hasn't been in the big leagues that long, but it would be nice to have a bat like that in the lineup, and even like you mentioned with Stanton, his presence alone. I mean, imagine him behind Judge, and splitting that up lefty-righty again, or righty-lefty. So I don't know. It's unfortunate. Nothing's going right lately for the Yankees again.
Hence the ups and downs of baseball. So Clayton Beeter, risk of missing the rest of the season. Not an exact, I would call diagnosis here. Yankees, again, probably doing the purposefully cloudy stuff around him. Right shoulder issues, really right shoulder discomfort of some kind here for him. Planning on seeing Dr. Keith Meester for the next steps of his timeline here. He hasn't pitched since May 15th with AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre dealing with this issue. If you're visiting Meester at this point, odds are you're getting a surgery of some kind. He's the doctor who, not to give too much away here, kind of was dealing, I think, with your Smith, and I want to say Brooks Raley for the Mets as well. So not a great outlook for one of the young arms for the Yankees.
Yeah, that was a guy that was actually fighting for a rotation spot, remember, in spring training.
Mm-hmm.
So would have been nice to have him healthy this year, especially with the way the pitching's struggling. I mean, he could be up right now.
Yeah.
So that does suck.
Speaking of the rotation, Cody going for Cy Young Poteet. Resumed a throwing program. He's been down since mid-June as well, dealing with an injury. Good to see he's kind of wrapping back up. Don't know his exact spot in this deal at this point, only because before he got hurt, he was one of the guys we openly talked about on here, right, being one of those possibilities of Cole slotting in for. Since then, it obviously has kind of worked out, unfortunately, in the favor of him and Clark Schmidt going down and Cole coming back, that now the Yankees are kind of in a spot where maybe he could come back and realistically be a fifth guy. All that hinges, I guess, obviously on the deadline and stuff like that. But for a guy who was throwing really well in those limited starts he had, positive sign of some positive progression going on.
Yeah, he was really good. I just don't think the Yankees are going to remove anyone from the rotation, but
Correct.
Who knows? Carlos Rodon, man.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about him. He's on his way to tripling his ERA the way he keeps pitching, but he has been awful.
Yeah.
The last, not even a small sample size. We're talking the last month and a half.
Yeah, really after, those first
13 starts. The last 7 have been awful.
Yeah, really more 5 starts.
He had a 2.90 ERA in his first 13 starts. Yeah. Now he's at 4.50.
Yeah.
So.
Not great. Not great, Bob. Hey, speaking of arms that we haven't talked about in a while, Lou Trevino has resumed throwing off of a mound, and Scott Efros is on a rehab assignment, still with it. He may be activated without throwing in consecutive games per Aaron Boone. So a couple guys that the Yankees haven't seen in quite some time, veteran arms in the bullpen, kind of progressing along. Obviously, Efros a little bit closer along the timeline to potentially being with the big league club. But I don't know how I feel about Lou still. Obviously, I had, if you recall, to go back to the way back machine. Wasn't a fan of him getting brought over in the first place back in 2022. Efros, on the other hand, I would be more than happy to see back in the bullpen. So you talk about some deadline stuff, right, Kyle? Certainly welcome at least one of those guys back if it meant, having another rock solid arm out in the bullpen to go to.
Yeah, I'd like to have Scott Efros back, but yeah, my hope for Lou Trevino isn't there. He setback after setback, and that trade in general is just going to go down again as a horrible, horrible trade by Cashman.
Yep. Shout out to J.P. Sears, by the way, kind of stabilizing a Oakland rotation that's been wonky this year. So, anyway, JT Brubaker, targeting a big league return next week after the All-Star break, has been with AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre since July 5th. I don't know what the Yankees kind of see with him exactly still. I go back to it, and the closer we get to this point, I still don't know. He was a starter, obviously, in Pittsburgh, for those who may not know, but, like, is he that swing guy for the Yankees now at this point? Kind of, I guess, Luke Weaver-ish in a way, even though Weaver's kind of found himself now more in these high-leverage situations. Like, is Brubaker the swing guy now where it's maybe if we needed a spot start or go out there and throw 3 innings so we don't burn 5 arms in the bullpen? I'm guessing that might be his role, but I still don't see fully where he exactly fits into the scheme.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to watch. He keeps, pitching multiple innings during his rehab assignments, so clearly they want him stretched out a little bit at least, or maybe they want to limit Luke Weaver's workload to an inning since he's the high leverage guy now.
Yeah.
Like even last night, I think Weaver went 1.2.
Yeah.
But you could tell he was getting tired at the end, so I think maybe they're going to try to get him back to just an inning guy. And Tommy Kahnle hasn't been good, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Bullpen is just what a difference between a month ago.
Yeah.
And all the arms they've lost. I mean, even Ian Hamilton, Nick Birdie, just
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah. Speaking of birdies, John Birdie took grounders at Yankee Stadium, and since then has traveled, I guess, technically down with the team to Tampa, but he's over at the complex, continuing to build back as well. He was on the 15, swung him to the 60-day, I believe August 12th is the earliest he could return. I think I might have the date maybe off by a day or two, but he's progressing along. So, again, really further out down the line. Don't know, depending upon the trade deadline, how he fits back into this picture. But, man, I mean, he's even a guy that I would say the Yankees surely miss right now just because of kind of, the issues that the infield, we talked about the pitching and the outfield a little bit, but, man, you talk about some issues in the infield going on right now. Birdie would probably solve some of those as well, to put it bluntly.
Yeah, DJ LeMahieu better watch out. Although, this is crazy, I was researching, DJ LeMahieu's hitting 300 in his last 7 games.
Still is wild.
He's 6 for 20.
Yeah.
But again, he's not hitting the ball.
No.
He keeps hitting the ball on the ground. I don't understand it.
It sucks because we haven't talked about it on here. I mentioned it a little bit yesterday, but I kind of want to get your opinion on this because, like, DJ's is kind of like one of those baseball players type players, right? I mean, that's just the way he's been his whole career. And I know what you mean by being careful a little bit here and watch himself, but it used to be someone we never saw, and then the Diamondbacks did it last year with Madison Bumgarner. We saw the Astros do it this year with Jose Abreu, but, if he gets back to that cold streak that he was out when he came back, do you think we could see a designated for assignment for DJ LeMahieu?
Yeah, I do think so. I don't know how you can keep running him out there the way the way he's playing. There's like some crazy set out there that he hits the ball the most on the ground in the entire league, and he didn't hustle that what was it, a week ago down the line. I mean, he's just doing things that aren't DJ LeMahieu. I mean, this guy won the batting title, and he has 4 extra base hits since he came back in 120 at bats.
Yeah.
I mean, he just hasn't been good. So yeah, I think if it does continue, they can't keep running him out there.
Right.
He's a corner infielder. That's a huge bat in the lineup.
Yeah. Yeah, he has just not been right for the better part of a year and a half now, and it sucks because I'm a big DJ LeMahieu fan, but it's one of those things where, say we get to that mid-August point, John Birdie comes back, LeMahieu's still struggling, and they need a roster spot available. I could see it. We see it now happen with these veterans, and we used to never see that happen. But teams very clearly are more than willing to do it now. So, who knows? Mentioned a little bit already, Kyle, at the jump. The Yankees looking to take a series against the Rays. Don't know. I'm with you. I don't know if it's going to happen, but they're going to face Shane Baz tonight in Tampa, with Cortez going obviously for the Yankees. This has been. I talked to actually a couple people about this yesterday. Kind of crazy that we're in the midst of probably the worst Rays team in pretty much a decade plus this year. And yet, once again, the Yankees kind of struggling once again with this in-division opponent, rival. I'd like to think they could get it done tonight, but I'm kind of with you. Like, what faith over the course of the past month have the Yankees given us in order to fully feel that way?
Let me cut in quick.
Go ahead.
They scored 2 runs last night. They won 2-1. Good. The
Right.
pitching was good. Who drove in the runs? Trent Grisham, both of them. They had 5 total hits.
Mhm.
So I don't understand. I get it. They have to, get going at some point and build off a game. But what makes you think after last night's performance they're just going to go out and win back-to-back games?
Well, let me introduce you to myself, one of the biggest Shane Boz haters on the planet at this point.
Well, he wasn't that bad against the Rangers in his first start of the year. And every Rays pitcher does well against the Yankees, it seems.
Yeah, that's true.
But one note, the Yankees, the only winning record against the divisional opponent is the Rays. They're 5-3.
Yeah, that's wild.
They're 14-17 against everyone or against the entire division.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rays are the only team they're beating this year, so
That's true.
I don't know. But again, 5-3 isn't anything great.
I feel like, to me, a little bit, though, yesterday was kind of like, I'm going to use a basketball analogy here a little bit. Just kind of seeing one through the hoop, like, when you're struggling. Like, I don't know.
The Rays were 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position.
I think what I hope and what I think is actually happened are very two different things, especially tonight, is what I'm kind of getting at, though. Like, if we go by numbers, I don't expect the Yankees to win tonight. Like, that's just the way it is. I think it's one of those, like, my head's telling me one thing, the heart's telling another,
Yeah, obviously I hope they do. I mean, I don't enjoy this. I mean, you know this as someone who watches every single game. I watched 94 games. I love the first 70. It was fun every night to turn on the TV. And now it's just like you're getting the vibes from the past several years. I mean, remember, even in 2022, they started historically good.
Yeah.
And they went 500 the rest of the way. This is why I'm not calling this a bad stretch, because the last several years they've been doing this. They start great in the first half, and they're an average team the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just scary knowing this. And then on top of that, Juan Soto's not here forever.
Right.
This could, he could have only 70 games left as a Yankee.
Yeah.
So they got to start winning. And it just seems like right now with the team they have, unless they make a lot of moves, it's not going to just click like the way it should.
Yeah.
And another thing that we haven't talked about was Anthony Volpe. He has been very, very bad.
Well, there's a couple guys we didn't talk about, admittedly, that maybe we should have, and it's just for the fact we got to get to other stuff here. But
One quick thing.
him
23.
Him and Glaber are the two that we probably should have really talked about that we didn't.
Volpe has actually been worse. 23 for his last 132.
Ooh, Paul
He's
Russo.
hitting 174.
Paul Russo numbers right there.
30 games.
Yeah.
I mean, he has been really, really bad.
And for the team too, there's nowhere to hide going into the All-Star break because they go to Baltimore this weekend.
Yep.
And while again I go back to this, I don't think maybe Baltimore sweeps them, but I have to look at the numbers here, right? Like what faith do you have in the Yankees taking 2 of 3 against them, right?
Yeah, let's say so. How would this work if the Orioles beat the Cubs tonight? They'd be 3 behind. They could be 6 behind by the All-Star break when they were 4 up on the Orioles. What, like 30 days ago?
Yeah, I was about to say 4 weeks ago.
Yeah,
when Baltimore was in New York.
And I get it. There's 3 wild card teams now, and the Yankees probably will make a wild card.
But to me, you bring it up, and I guess it will be the last point before we really get to the Mets here. But like, I go back to this, like, it's kind of like that. I know it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, but like, not having to play an extra game or 2 really does make a difference. Like, you save arms, you can do whatever. Like, it's big. Like, I that's why to me, winning the division carries so much weight now, especially if you're one of the 2 best records, obviously, within the league. Like, it's just huge. It's an opportunity. To me, it's the opportunity of, not having to go the mantra of having your second best pitcher go first, as opposed to having your ace actually go 1, then 4, or if you need to in that opening round.
Yeah, it's gonna be they got to turn it around. I mean, I know they'll probably still make a wild card. Yeah. But even the team that they could play in the wild card is dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these AL teams are pretty good teams this year. I mean, even the Royals. The Royals have been playing some good ball lately. The Twins have been playing well. the Yankees can't beat the Red Sox.
Yeah.
So imagine if they matched up with them in a wild card game.
Yeah. Kansas City, my sleeper team this year, by the way.
Oh no, by the way, the Astros.
Yeah.
4 games above 500.
Is it bad? I just don't think they'll continue it.
Well, I think they're going to go off the trade deadline and have a great trade deadline.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. All right, let's get over to the Mets here. Their stock on the upswing, admittedly, here compared to the Yankees. 20-10 in their last 30, 12-8 in the last 20, and then 6-4 in their last 10. Find themselves now, albeit 1 game above 500, but we haven't been able to say it a ton this year. The Mets are above 500. Division-wise, they're still a pretty good ways back, but now they find themselves in a really, talk about wild card. The NL is a bit of a muck for all the wrong reasons in the wild card, but they find themselves in a pretty good position in the wild card. The Mets are right now. For a team that, again, go back to something we were talking about the Yankees 4 weeks ago, that we were kind of casting aside this team and burning the bridge on the season, and now find themselves in a spot to maybe not necessarily be sellers at the trade deadline, maybe kind of do some small buying and not really, I could say, mortgage off their future, but a team that is certainly on the upswing.
Yeah, they have the best record in the last 36 games in the entire league, 24-12.
Okay.
Their pitching, sorry,
You're good.
their pitching has been really, really good.
Yeah.
Basically everyone in the rotation, and the hitting has come a long, long way. I mean, guys are just contributing up and down the order. Lindor's been a great leadoff hitter, hitting over 300 since the switch. Nimmo is starting to produce pretty well. I mean, everything's going well. This is what this team is capable of doing. And we kind of mentioned it with the talent they have. They can be a pretty good team. I mean, I don't think they're going to be like a World Series winning team, but I think the way the wild card is, they can make the wild card.
And that's the one of the things I go back to, where it's like, I talked about it, and Kyle, you'll obviously vouch for this, but like, it's one of the things for me, going back to like May, where I was just like, this team has too much talent to not be in like the playoff race at the very least. And good to see they turn it around. The one name on there, though, that I do want to talk about that you didn't mention, really, was Francisco Alvarez. Comes back from that injury, and right around the time they kind of get on this streak going, and it's kind of interesting. It's kind of funny how things work. All of a sudden I see him pop up on a lot more Mets social media stuff here lately. There was a TikTok I saw of him handing out cookies to people in the front office. He seems like, for being a really super young kid, he seems to have that leadership role for the Mets in a way that we talked about on here before, from the guys who at least are internally brought up, that I thought they were lacking. Maybe, just maybe, Francisco Alvarez might be that guy. It would be nice. It'd be a nice change of pace for the Mets, but he just might be that guy.
Yeah, well, so what is this? He's hit safely in a career best 10 straight games. Hitting .515? I didn't even realize that. Yeah, you're right. Man, Alvarez has been unbelievable. But I think sometimes he gets overshadowed because, like I said, everyone's contributing. Even Harrison Bader, again, he's always in the middle of a rally. Tyrone Taylor had a big triple last night. Yeah, this team is clicking right now. And the thing that also they have to take care of, they're playing 18 consecutive games against 500 or below teams. They have to start beating these bad teams. I mean, they have, but they have to have a really good record in this 18 stretch. They're only 6-4 so far to start. It's 0-0. They're playing right now at 0-0. They got to beat the Nationals. They got to sweep them. I know the Nationals have good talent, but if they're going to make a wild card, they got to take care of these games, and I think they will. They're playing really well.
Yeah, and it's also not quite in the midst of, they were, coming into this All-Star break, it was 17 games in 17 days for them as well.
Yep.
So the fact that they're kind of doing what they've been doing, it's pretty remarkable.
And they were shorthanded because of the suspension.
Yeah.
And they still managed to keep winning through it. And that's the thing. If they are buyers, I know we're not going to talk a lot about the deadline, but I'm just saying, if they're buyers, they have to finally address the bullpen. They've been,
Correct.
It seems like how many years since they've actually made a legit bullpen move?
Yeah, I mean, when was the trade for Edwin Diaz? Ended up being the Edwin Diaz trade. That was what,
It seems like forever ago.
2018/19, right? So, I
6
mean,
years?
Yeah.
Brooks Raley, fine. He's good talent. But, I mean, it's nothing like – I think they need like a top-end reliever that can get strikeouts. And Jake Diekman, has been horrible. If you want to talk
Yeah.
about a spot that's been bad, that's
He
Jake Diekman.
he's a member. Me and my buddy have a system that we do of when you see these guys pitching for a team, you should probably strike the other team while the iron's hot. It's Diekman.
Reed Jarrett's fallen off a bit. Now he's hurt.
Well, yeah, that was coming up there. Justin Lawrence out in Colorado. And unfortunately, even though it did not come to fruition a couple nights ago, old Peter Fairbanks for the Rays. But either way, I digress. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, not to get into maybe too much here when we get to it, but like they bring in Phil Maton, who just what a really strange couple of years he's had after being one of the top relievers in the league. Finds himself getting DFA'd and stuff like that, and the Mets bring him in on a flyer. Yeah, I mean, even last night, I mean, Jose Buto gets the save. Like, it's one of those things where guys in unusual spots are even kind of showing up and kind of doing their thing. Like, you know, and it's kind of like a little bit of like, for the Yankees, you're probably looking forward to the All-Star break, right? Where you can just catch your breath for a minute and kind of figure out what's next. Whereas the Mets, you're almost kind of dreading the break in a way, only because like you're on fire, things are going right. You really don't want to take 4 days off in a way, you know. You'd rather keep going in that sense. So when things are going, and that's the thing with the Mets. Like I go back to it, you know, I talked about, and I think there's still a little bit of it for me personally, where it's like they gotta just be a little bit more. I know, like you mentioned, Kyle, right? The bullpen's a little bit of it. You know, even for me, the rotation a little bit too has got to. I don't know if the Mets are going to be able to go out there and match what some of these other teams on the market are going to be giving up for starting pitching. But, you know, to me, you just can't rely on kind of the guys they got. None of them are aces really anymore. Now, again, not to give too much away for what we are going to be talking about here in a second, but like, it's very clearly Kodai Senga's somewhere in this pipeline coming up within the next couple of weeks. Things are looking really good for him in these rehab outings. I don't know how he fully fits into this picture, how he will affect the Mets' plans. I don't know. But, you know, if you're the Mets, you're in the right spot right now to really make that, you know, you're already taken one step. Like, let's make that next step so this isn't a completely lost season at this point.
Yeah. I don't know. I think if I had to pick a guy right now that Senga would replace, it would probably be Christian Scott. Because everyone else really, honestly, has some good numbers. Sean Manaea,
Yeah.
I mean, Jose Quintana, they all have ERAs under 4. Luis Severino has been good recently. David Peterson's pitching today.
He's just got to work on his fundamentals. Did you see that last night, Severino?
Wait, I'm trying to remember it. No, wait, did I?
So there was a play at home, and he
threw it?
didn't back it up, and it got by the catcher and a run scored. And Ron Darling was not going to let him forget that it happened.
Oh no, I missed that then.
Yeah.
And yeah, and David Peterson, what a story he's been.
Pete's been great,
and he's pitching great again today. So I don't know. I think Christian Scott would probably have to be the odd man out.
Yeah, and he and that's the tough spot for him, right? Because he gets called up in May, does really well in his first couple of starts. They send him down because they were going to London, and just his schedule was like he would have not pitched at the big league level for like 11 days or something like that. So they send him down to Syracuse to just be on the same cycle, and he did lose some steam. Like I remember watching a game it was during when the Mets were traveling. Syracuse happened to be on SNY for one of their 10 games of the year that's on the big network like that, and he only threw like 4 innings. He was getting rocked around a little bit, and part of me kind of wonders if that kind of maybe messed with him a little bit in a way, but he has not looked the same since that first stint he had back at the end of May and beginning of June. That's for sure. And you know, you're probably right, to be honest with you. If you had to pick one guy out, it probably would be him as it stood right now.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, he still shouldn't have put the runners on, but it's also unfair. A lot of the runners that he's put on, the pitcher that comes in gives them up, and it's charged to him.
Yeah.
For example, Jake Diekman, 2 outs, throws
Shout
a fastball down the middle,
Yep.
grand slam. Hey, or Christian Scott, take 3 earned runs. I mean, that sucks. I mean, as a starting pitcher, you want that final out, but Yeah, I mean, the pitching's been really good. 1.90 ERA in the last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's no complaints really right now.
Mhm.
Everything's clicking on both ends. Just get the bullpen a little better, and they'll be really good shape.
When things are good, things are good. All right, let's touch on a couple players here. More than that, I suppose. Mentioned Reed Garrett, Kyle, on the injured list with right elbow inflammation. Um, could simply just be inflammation. Could be worse. Will remain to be seen for a guy who came out of the gates actually really strong for the Mets. Was probably one of the few bright spots early in the season, but since then just has not had it right. Maybe this was part of the issue. Danny Young recalled from Syracuse. Eric Orsi option to Syracuse. By the way, Eric Orsi, really awesome story, by the way. Finally got his big league debut within the past week, so he'll go back to Syracuse on the bullpen shuttle. Sean Reed-Foley began a throwing program as he returns from a right shoulder impingement. He's been dealing with that for, pretty much over a year now. That was the reason he was out all of last year pretty much. And then the start of this year came back and dealing with it again. Certainly sucks to see. Starling Marte, follow-up test today for his right knee, has a right knee deep bruise, as they're calling it. And, another guy, mentioned it, Kyle, who, all this is happening for the Mets, and he was a big one of the few bright spots early in the season for the Mets, and he's missed this recent run here, most of it because of that knee issue.
Yeah, I mean, I know he was good, but honestly, the way they're playing, I mean, take your time, man.
Yeah.
Harrison Bader loves playing every day. Tyrone Taylor loves his starts here and there. I don't think I don't know. I don't think he's missed right now. I think they're just clicking really well right now.
Again, it's really weird. Like, why rock the boat if you don't have to in a way with that? But yeah, it does suck for him because, like I mentioned, he was one of the few bright spots for this team at the start of the year, and for him to be kind of missing out during this run, it does kind of suck for him anyway.
And remember, if they do sell, that's the one guy we've always talked about. Is that the guy that another playoff team would want, a veteran guy like that? I think they would. So we'll see if he gets healthy, if there's interest, and maybe he'll be going somewhere.
Yep. All right, mentioned Kodai Senga a little bit already, but here's the main chunk of it, rehabbing with High A Brooklyn and Triple A Syracuse. He'll either be pitching July 14th with Syracuse or July 15th in a simulated game. The 14th would be Sunday, obviously. Triple A has a similar, they don't have an all-star game this year again, but they do have the 4-day break, much like the big leagues. All the minor leagues do. If they go with the traditional 4-day rest that they've been giving him, he's going to pitch Sunday. If they don't, they're going to do a simulated game at Citi Field with live batting on that Monday the 15th. Remains to be seen kind of what happens with him there. The way it sounds, the plan is, depending upon how he looks in this upcoming rehab outing, whichever way they go, might be the last one, might not be, but we're really getting close to the return of arguably the Mets' best pitcher, at least on paper. It'd be interesting to kind of see how he fits into this fold as well. We mentioned a little bit already, kind of talking about Christian Scott, but, for a guy that, again, go back to the stuff we were talking about in May, Kyle, for a guy that we were just kind of waving the white flag on this year and figuring that we just weren't going to see him this year, has really ramped it up in this rehab stuff, has clocked in the high 90s on his fastball. He's looking really good, and I don't think the Mets, I think that might be one of the guys that they wouldn't mind to seeing come back even though they're in the midst of this run.
Yeah, I would say thank God for this run because now it actually means something. It can help this team really push for a playoff spot. What is there, like 70 games left for the Mets too? So, yeah, it's going to be a good addition to have back after the All-Star break.
All right, Drew Smith, right-handed reliever, is going to be undergoing a second Tommy John surgery. Yet to be decided, though, if it's going to be the traditional route, which is one he's already had, or the modern brace procedure. But either way, unfortunately, his season is done. I already mentioned Phil Maton, and to make room on the 40-man for him, Joey Lucchese was designated for assignment. So he was just, again, one of those odd men out in the rotation-wise as it stood, and had spent pretty much the bulk of the year at Syracuse. Did have, I think it was 2 starts up with the Mets, but remains to be seen for Joey Lucchese what the next step would be. All right, we've already mentioned it. Kyle, Mets looking for a sweep of the Nationals. Things looking on the up and up already today for them before they come back to Citi Field and welcome the Rockies before the All-Star break. So as you mentioned, right, during this streak, you have to handle business against these teams. And for the Mets, you got to feel pretty good about heading into this weekend against Colorado, I'd say.
Yeah, still 0-0 in the 5th inning. Even if they do lose, I mean, they've still been winning a ton late. Oh, Brandon Nimmo just had a bases clearing double.
There it is.
So it's 3-0 Mets. Yeah, you have to feel really good going in against the Rockies, who, like I mentioned, have a worse team ERA than the Yankees, which seems impossible. So they should beat up on the Rockies pitching with the way the offense is going, and maybe even another sweep if they hold on here, which I think they will.
Yeah, I'm kind of on board. I'm on board with a couple back-to-back sweeps. Why not?
Yeah.
All right, let's touch on Rochester and Syracuse before we get out here for the day. The Rochester Red Wings, they're red hot, to put it bluntly. 11-3 to start the second half of the year. And, oh, by the way, they're sitting alone atop the whole International League by a couple games. It was a team that did get kind of hot there at the end as well in the first half, and they've kind of stuck with it. They're in Worcester this week. Then, as I mentioned, minor leagues are off for 4 days. Then they're at Syracuse for 3 games next weekend. We weren't around for this, but James Wood sent up to Washington. His contract selected there.
Talk about a slow start.
Yeah.
30.
Yeah, it has been great, but it's nice kind of to see him in the big league uniform.
He was good in his first few games.
Yeah. Let's touch on some other guys here. Been some roster moves. Riley Adams recalled. Drew Millis option from Washington. Jacob Liu, be big to get him back. He's on a rehab assignment with the Florida Complex League team. Juan Yepes was selected, and then an interesting move here, only because he was struggling, but Joey Meneses optioned back from Washington to Rochester, a guy who a couple of years ago was kind of the toast of the town offensively for the Red Wings, and finds himself back to try and get himself right with the Red Wings.
Yeah, and he was, talked about in the World Baseball Classic. Remember how many home runs he was hitting?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was a popular guy, and then he hit 230, and they said, see ya, go back to Rochester.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully he gets it figured out. I mean, he's 32, though.
Yeah.
He's been around forever.
Yeah. Rookie at 30, though, so it's tough. Trey Lipscomb recalled to Washington. And then here we go. We got Brady House promoted from AA Harrisburg. He was the number 3 prospect for Washington. That's in addition to, by the way, we didn't mention it, but Dylan Cruz was called up as well from Harrisburg to Rochester a couple weeks ago. The number 2 prospect that's behind James Wood. So Rochester looking really good here in the second half. Luke Farrell was granted his release. Yohan Adon was recalled, and DJ Hur's option from Washington. So good stuff in Rochester to start the second half of the year. Syracuse, 500 ball to start the second half of the year, 7-6. There's been interesting roster moves. We already mentioned a ton off the top with the big league club. Mets, they're home this week against Scranton. As I mentioned before, this all-star break, and then having Rochester come to town. Matt Festa was granted his release, as was Trace Thompson. JT Swartz assigned from AA Binghamton. Matt Gage was optioned from New York. And pretty good sign here, though. A guy that we talked a lot about in 2022 before he got hurt, Bryce Montes de Oca, on his rehab kind of build up here, was assigned from AA Binghamton as he gets himself back and in the swing of things. But maybe a little bit of fortunes reversed here in the second half of the year, at least as it looks right now, as Rochester has a little bit of a hold over Syracuse. Even though Syracuse, as mentioned, it's 500 ball, but 7-6, so it's 1 game above. But interesting games. These are big games for Syracuse. We mentioned Scranton towards the tail end of that first half of the year. Syracuse was chasing them in the IL East. And, for 2 teams that probably were expecting to be at the top and aren't at the top of the division right now, this is a pretty important series to kind of really kick off, or not really kick off, but, get the second half of the year still in gear.
Yeah, I'm very impressed, honestly, with the Red Wings. The last few years haven't been great, and they're consistently winning again. Scranton, yeah, they were in first place, and now they're all the way towards the bottom, but their pitching is killing them. That's why the Yankees keep signing these guys to minor league deals. Chasen Shreve, though, looked good last night. I know that's Yankees related, so sorry about that.
Yankee legend Chasen Shreve.
Yeah. But yeah, Syracuse, even them over 500 is great to see.
Yeah.
I mean, they have not been good either. So great minor league stuff around here.
Yep. Yeah, the baseball is in a good spot around here. So that'll do it for Concrete Jungle for this week. We'll be back at it again next Thursday. We'll focus on some trade deadline stuff next Thursday for the teams. Obviously, with the All-Star break, there won't be a ton to really talk about, or at least in theory, there shouldn't be a ton to talk about, but you never quite know, obviously, as the world turns.
Wait, let me give
Yeah,
you
go
my
ahead.
home run derby winner.
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Let me hold on. I gotta bring up the class again.
Go ahead. Can I give mine then quickly?
Yeah.
Adolis Garcia. That's who I'm going
probably
with.
win. I'm trying to pick a favorite too. Some of these guys, I'm not a fan of them.
Sure.
I really wouldn't care who wins it other than Pete Alonso. I don't want to see him win it again. Screw that. And Teoscar Hernandez. Just not a fan. That guy, I don't know. I just started not liking him lately. I like Gunnar Henderson. I know he's a rival of
Really?
the Yankees. I really like Gunnar
Yeah.
Henderson.
Him and Bobby Wood scare me, only because I maybe Jose Ramirez fits in this boat too, but like they're all line drive guys.
Yeah.
I don't know how well that's going to work out for a home run derby.
Yeah, because isn't the rule still apply that the farther you hit it, the more extra time you could get?
I think so.
So
They switched up the format a little bit.
Yeah,
this
they
year,
did.
but-
So you need power. Like you need
Yeah.
guys that can really hit it. And then Alec Bohm. I mean, some of these guys I don't like that are in the Derby, but then you see a lot of the stars they don't want to be in it.
Yeah.
Ohtani doesn't want to be in Judge. Stanton's hurt. So I don't know. I'll watch it, but it's like, yeah, could be better participants.
Mm.
And the All-Star game is the best among every sport. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think it is. It's the most
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
I mean, guys are still having fun and messing around, but like you're going through the actual
yeah.
game.
It's hard to fake baseball.
Yeah.
You know.
And guys are still throwing 95,
Yeah.
plus. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's going to be a nice little 4 days off for both teams.
Yeah, I'm with you there though, Kyle. The All-Star game I like pretty much everything with All-Star week still for the most part.
A lot of first-time All-Stars as well.
Yeah. Some interesting picks as well. So, but either way, I think it's good for the game that you kind of get these guys in, no matter who they are, in a way, right? I mean, baseball as a whole is in a really good spot, I feel like, right now. So,
Yeah, a lot of fun players.
all right, Kyle, let's get out of there on that note. We got our picks in, I guess, for the home run derby, and who doesn't like the long ball? So, we'll talk again next Thursday, everybody. Enjoy the All-Star break and the weekend.